What it do, y'all? It's your girl Makeup and Travel, and for today's video your girl is here to bring you another video in my 3 looks 1 palette series. In this series I typically go ahead and show you guys 3 looks with the new palette that I purchased to bring into my collection, and for this video I am going to be showcasing 3 looks with the Natasha Denona Pastel palette. This palette was leaked and then it wasn't leaked, and it took so long for it to come to America and also Canada, but I really just wanted to bring this into my collection. I had a feeling that if I didn't, I would regret it, as I have with some of her other previous launches, and so I did go ahead and pick this palette up. This is not the first time that I've worked with pastels. I have quite the experience actually with working with pastels, to the extent that like one of my really old videos was a video all highlighting some of my favorite pastel palettes. I would not recommend going to see that video. I could only imagine the quality and the conversation that was had, but nonetheless I did want to add this to my pastel collection and my Natasha Denona collection. Now what I will be doing in this video, it's going to be a long one. I decided I wasn't going to break these videos up. Typically what I would do is do swatches, comparison, and one quick look really quickly, and then later on I would do 3 looks. I just honestly don't have the time. I'd rather just put them all together this time, so that's what I'm today. I'm right after this we're gonna break away and I'm going to show you guys the swatches of this palette on my complexion. I will also have a still photo of swatches on the screen right now as well. Then next what I'm going to do is do some comparisons to show you guys what this palette looks like in comparison to some others, and then also I might do some swatch comparisons as well. We'll see how I feel, and then at the tail end I will show you guys the 3 looks. So this is going to be a long one. I will make sure to have chapters down below for you all, as well as all of the items that I am wearing on my face. I will have them listed down below in case you have any questions. So this is going to be a long one. I hope you get something to drink, some food, get a snack for me and you, and let's get into it. Alrighty guys, so now it is time to do the in-depth look at this palette. I'm going to be showing you guys all of the information that is talked about on this palette. I'm going to be showing you guys the packaging, I'm going to do some live swatches, and then I'll also already have shown you guys some still photo swatches. We're also going to do some comparisons, so this is going to be quite a chunk of the video. Like I've said before, if you want to skip around to another part, feel free, but let's get into it. So like I said, this is the Natasha Denona Pastel palette. This is the packaging, the actual cardboard packaging. In this palette, you get a net weight of 19.25 grams or 0.67 ounces. On the back of the actual cardboard packaging, that is where you're going to get all of the really important information about each shadow. You're going to get the formulation type, best application tips, and also the ingredients list as well. It also states that this palette is 24 months shelf life, and that's it. So I picked this up from Sephora.com pretty much the same day that it launched. You can see the really pretty beautiful ombre shading, and let's open up the packaging. The palette replicates the very same ombre that you saw in the actual cardboard packaging. It still says Natasha Denona Pastel palette. That is very much like ingrained into the actual packaging, just as her normal packaging is. Then the back, you get the pretty much the bare minimum, just the shelf life. I think very small down here. It also tells you the amount of product, and then also you see the holes so that you can pop out any shadow you might particularly like to pop out. Then we get the actual shades. If you're wondering, I have a majority daylight, but I also do tend to just put my ring light on just for a little added light, because sometimes, you know, daylight likes to play me. Anyways, these are the really pretty shadows. You get quite a few cream to powder, so 1, 2, and 3, 4 are cream to powder. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 mattes. Then in my opinion you have some like duochromes or like multi-chromes, which are 1, 2, 3. Then you have her straight up metallic formulation, which is 1, 2, 3. And this one I find not to be in this like duochrome side, but it's also not as glittery as this one. So I call this just a basic shimmer, but I think in her kind of chart on the back of the actual cardboard packaging, she continues to give it the same kind of initials as these, which are like that duochrome, multi-chrome finish. So that is the breakdown of each shadow. Now what I'm going to do is actually move this maybe over here. I don't know. This is the first time I've done the swatching this way, and I'm going to just swatch on the top of my arm, mainly just because it's easier. The underside of my arm, well, let's see. Let's see if we can do it. We can do it. All right, let's get it done. So the first shade I'm going to swatch is Tulle. And like I said, this is a cream to powder, and that's Tulle. Then we have Illusion. That is Illusion. Then we have Mint Frost. That is Mint Frost. Then we have another cream to powder, which is Bara, and that is Bara. Then we have Dainty, and that is the first row of shadows that unfortunately I had to cut off to make sure my arm was in the frame. But that's the first row of shadows. Now let's get into the second row. First, we're starting off with a matte, which is Brisk. Quite a bit of extra product there, and that is Brisk. Then we have Ardontic. That is Ardontic. Next we have Starlit. That is Starlit right there. Next we have Bellini. That is Bellini. Then we have Bubble. That is Bubble. So that is now the first two rows on this palette. Let's get into the third and final row now, and we're going to start off with Limoncello. That is Limoncello. Next we have Duet. And there you go for Duet. Next we have Airy. And there you go for Airy. Next we have our last cream to powder, which is Zest. And that is Zest. And then lastly we have Feather. Alrighty, so this is the full palette. Let me see if I can scoot the palette in there. Yep, so this is the full palette swatched on my arm, and then of course you see the palette in view. Now there is definitely going to be a difference between these swatches right here on my arm right now, and then of course the swatches that you will have seen earlier. The main difference in just being that I like to build up my swatches for the still photo and for Instagram, whereas in YouTube I like to show one swipe swatches as much as possible, just to show kind of the quote-unquote true amount that you're gonna get in like an initial pass. So that is that. Feel free to, you know, pause the video in case there is a particular shade you really want to see the formulation on my arm or whatever. But now we're going to kind of get into some of those comparisons. Okay, so like I said during my must-have must-gag, we knew that there were some duplicate shades. Can I do it this way? Yeah. We knew that there were some duplicate shades between the new Pastel palette and the Tropic palette. So I did want to go ahead and start when it comes to my comparison swatches, literally just duping or showing you guys those swatches on my arm. So Limoncello is in both palettes. So this is from the Tropic palette, and this is from the Pastel palette. I will build up both swatches, and there you go. This one is from the Pastel palette, and this one is from the Tropic palette. As you can see, there is no difference. They're pretty much the same formulation, pretty much the same shade. I see nothing different at all between these two shades. So the other shade that is duplicated between the two shades is Mint Frost. So I'm just going to go ahead and swatch those as well. And I'm just going to put them on the outside of their respective palette that they belonged to. I'm just going to double swatch like I did the other one. Alrighty, and in swatching these two, I will say that it's definitely the same color. I actually more so appreciate the formulation in the Pastel than the Tropic, but do keep in mind my Tropic I picked up from a third party, and as you can tell if you look at the actual condition of some of these shadows, they kind of really were scraping and trying their hardest, and they couldn't get it. So that's that. But overall, you know, only two shades that are duplicated. I'm not really bent out of shape, but some people may, so that's why I wanted to go ahead and show the comparisons. But I also just want to show you guys these two palettes side to side. Like I said, same lighting. Otherwise, I don't think that there's any one shade that is really apparently duping. Maybe these two kind of peachier tones, but I don't think they are duping. But let's swatch them just to make sure. So this is Bellini from the Pastel palette, and then we have Pastel Melon from the Tropic palette. Yeah, they're completely different. So Bellini and Pastel Melon. Let me just do double swatching like I did before. And there you go. I'm not sure you'll be able to see in the difference in camera, but the Bellini one definitely has a more of a tanned kind of tone, whereas this one really does have more of an orangey kind of undertone to it. They're both the same depth level, so that's probably why it's hard for the camera to really differentiate between the two, but there really is a slight difference between the two. So there you go. Otherwise, I don't see anything that duplicates this, so time to close this one out. The next one that I just wanted to show you guys, I don't see any dupes, but just for argument's sake, is the Circo Loco. I think out of anything, it might be this light pink over here, but if you're seeing this in real life, this light pink, although may look like this feather on camera, the feather is clearly more lavender, where the light pink is literally light pink. But let me clean off my hand and I will show you guys the comparisons. Okay, so we have feather, and then we have cotton candy. And once again, I am going to do a double swatch. All right. And there you go. As you can see, cotton candy is actually a lot more pastel and lighter in tone, more white based than feather. Feather is definitely a more gray based color, but like I said, it is definitely a pastel-ish purple. So those are the two shadows that I was talking about that could potentially be dupes, but really they aren't. So yeah, time to close this one. Next, I wanted to bring in a palette that is completely different brand, but there are some pastels in here, and we're gonna scoot Natasha just a little bit. There we go. So this is my Beauty Wide Seasons palette, and once again, this is the pastel palette. You really don't see much difference or much comparisons. Maybe this one, and once again Bellini, but that's kind of a normal shade. Oh, maybe this one and this one, and maybe this one and this one. Okay, let's get to some swatching. So I am going to swatch these all out really quickly. So those last three groupings are really what we're looking at here. And I do want to just point out that there is a huge difference between the feel of these actual shadows. Specifically, this matte to powder feels literally like a cream-ish shade, and so it applies a lot softer than the full-on matte that I have from the Beauty Wide shade. Similar to the two different mattes in either grouping, the mattes from Natasha Denona just feel softer than the ones from Beauty Wide. Granted, I have had this palette from Beauty Wide for at least, I would say, 4 or 5 years now. Still enjoying it, still really loving it, but that may be another reason why the actual shadows feel a lot rougher. Either way, like you can see on the swatches, there's absolutely no similarities between any of these last 3 groupings. So yeah, there's nothing really in comparison between these two. And then I have one more comparison that I would like to make. So the last comparison that I would personally like to make is actually with this palette. This is the Playing in Makeup by Yolanda Gem Rock Washina palette, and this is a huge palette. It is going to take up quite a bit of space. There's actually one row off camera. So let's just so that you guys can see it. This is what this palette looks like. So I just want to see if there's any comparisons, any maybe similar shades that I could potentially swatch out for you all. And in all honesty, there really isn't. They have similar tones. Oh wait, let's do this Brisk. There are 2 shades. I think either Heather or Ebony could potentially be similar shades there. Maybe I'll do Tulle against Caitlin, although I know Tulle is going to come out lighter in pigmentation. And maybe Zest and Deja. So let's do all 3 of those kind of comparisons for you. So here is Brisk from Natasha Denona. And then I think it's probably going to be closest to Heather, honestly. Let's see. Let's do that. And let's do Ebony. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Let's do the next grouping, which I said was Tulle and Caitlin. Okay. Then next we're going to do Airy and Madeline. And there was one more I said I was going to do. It was Zest and Deja. There you go. Alrighty, so this is quite interesting. As you can see, we have some similarities here. We have quite a few similarities. Let's go through the swatches. This is Brisk from the Natasha Denona Pastel palette. Then we have Heather from the Playing in Makeup by Yolanda palette. And we have Ebony. So clearly Ebony and Brisk are extremely similar, if not the exact same. So I already had that shade. Then we have Tulle from the Pastel palette and Caitlin, and there is an extremely slight, and I do mean slight, difference. This one is a little bit more pinky, whereas this one's just slightly deeper and like a little bit more salmony. But I mean, honestly, on the eyes, I don't know if you would even be able to see the difference. Then we have Airy from the Pastel palette and Madeline from the Playing in Makeup by Yolanda palette. Once again, very slight difference. This one is a little bit more deeper blue, whereas this one's slightly more of an aquatic blue. This one more like ocean type blue. I don't really know. And then these are the 2 last one, which we have Zest from the Pastel palette and we have Deja from the Playing in Makeup by Yolanda palette. And I will say the Deja is clearly deeper, but you know, yeah, I don't really know. So that's interesting. I did not expect to see as many similarities, honestly, between these 2 palettes. So I guess in me doing these swatches, it's truly only just to see like, was I a clown and picking up, you know, duplicate shades, but also for those who maybe don't like Natasha Denona or want something that's cheaper. I believe this one, the Playing in Makeup by Yolanda, you can get for like 30% off during normal sales. I don't distinctly remember the actual price, but you clearly get a wider variety of shades, and you don't only get pastels, you get some brights in there, and you get some deep darkener shades as well. So this could be like more of a full-on colorful palette for somebody who maybe doesn't necessarily only just want one pastel palette, but they want one colorful palette to add to their one or two, you know, neutral palettes, and they just want one. So whereas this Natasha Denona, you're really only going to get one kind of tone of color. This one you'll get multiple. Same with some of the differences really with these other ones that I've shown you, like this Beauty Wide one. I don't actually know if the brand is still doing this palette, but you get so much more depth with the splash of pastel. So maybe if you only want a splash of pastel, this might be the better road for you to take. And then of course, you know, if you want literally a splash, like 1, 2, 3, and then you want all deep and sultry, you got the Circo Loco. And then of course, lastly, if you can find a decent priced Tropic, you not only get some really nice colorful shades down here, but you also get some really beautiful basic mattes up top that could be used every day. So that really was the purpose of this part of the video. I just really wanted to give you guys some options in the event that you needed options, that all of that. I did also forget to mention that this does come with a mirror cover, which she does not do in all of her palettes, but I really do appreciate it personally. I almost never take that off just because shadows get really messy. You can already see that my palette is getting quite messy just between my 3 looks and my swatches. It's just certain shadows are less pigmented and less compact, so they chip off a little bit more. But overall, like I said, there are quite a different variety of formulations in this palette, which I really do appreciate, and there is a variety of depths and everything as well. So I hope that this part was informative and helpful for you all, and now it is time to get into the tutorials, which you guys will have seen slowly throughout my channel all last week and early this week with the eye looks that I did. But yeah, if you want to see how I created them, let's get into it. Hey guys, so I am here to bring you look number 1 for my 3 looks 1 palette. I'm vibing so hard it's not even funny. So I've already done basically my whole base and everything. I just need to prime this eye. I am going to go ahead and use my Natasha Denona eyeshadow base. It is my favorite base that I have right now that is a lighter complexion or a lighter shade than my skin tone. And when I personally use pastels, I do prefer to use a base that is lighter than my complexion to really help those pastels pop even more than they naturally do off of my skin tone. So that is like one quick tip that I would give you if you already have pastels in your collection and you want to make them work a little bit better. Try using a base that is of lighter shade than your skin tone, specifically your skin tone, with all of your makeup on if you wear a whole beat every time you put on the pastels that you're trying to work with. Okay, so first what I'm gonna do is reach into the eyeshadow palette with my Sephora Pro 19 brush, and I am going to go into the shade Brisk. Right there, it's like a light teal shade, and what I'm gonna do, beware, this does have quite a bit of kick up, so it could present quite a bit of fallout depending on how you apply it, but I kind of made sure to press it on originally, well, initially, not originally, and I am just going to work this into that outer V area, but mainly the outer portion of my transition area. Take your time, because like I said, this shade is very, very loose. You can see it's already fallen a little bit, but it swipes away quite easily, which is nice. And I'm just going to take the time to really get this zone nice and pigmented, built up, all of that. And then also take the time to, of course, blend those edges. Okay, so that outer area is pretty much set. I do have a little bit of funkiness in some places, but I will fix that. Then, because I am lazy, I'm just gonna wipe off that brush right on a paper towel. And then I am gonna go into my inner crease shade, which I actually went into the shade Zest. So this lime green shade. Same brush as I just used, and we're going to do the same exact thing except for focusing this on the inner half of my transition and crease area. And you are going to kind of, depending on how you work, you may go back and forth just to make sure that everything looks nice and blended, and so that one color does not pull too much. I do find with this particular shade that because it is such a white base, one, it doesn't pick up on camera true to color, so hopefully when I come in it'll be better. But also I find that it just is very harsh compared to my skin, so I've been using like a really thick buffer brush just to really try and buff that in, kind of, because it's so harsh compared to my skin tone. But just trying to give you guys as many tips and tricks as I'm finding along the way. So that's pretty much my crease. I'm not going to really add anything except something to deepen out that outer V and slightly into my crease. So then I'm going to take a smaller brush. This happens to be from BH Cosmetics. This is the number, I think that says 9. Sorry, the number is starting to wear off. Same with the marble design, which is kind of sad. Anyways, I'm gonna go into the shade Bora, which is the deep purple. And just by looking at this palette, that looks to be kind of the darkest shade. So I'm gonna take this brush and I'm going to apply that Bora shade, like I said, in that outer V area. Then I'm going to take that along my lower lash line just to start to create some more dimension in this look. Okay. I'm not done up top. I don't like necessarily how it looks, but I want to kind of continue to build. I'm going to go back into that first original blending brush and just pick up a small amount of Brisk. And I am going to tap it off because I am on my lower lash line. And then we're going to just connect the dots. If you know me, I like to have everything connected, even if, you know, it makes my lower lash line look even lower than it should. That's just how I roll. So I'm just going to work on connecting everything and giving this eye the same depth that my first eye got. Okay, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good now. Now what is next is I'm going to take a clean, well, I'm going to wipe off my brush, and then I am going to clean my lid with some NYX glitter glue. I do still have some kicking around, so I am just going to go ahead and just clean up this whole area with that NYX glitter glue to prepare my lid for the shimmers. Okay, so that's pretty much that. We've cut the lid. Now what I'm gonna do is very similar to my last tutorial. I think it'll be by the time this goes up. I'm gonna take just the tip of the side that actually still has some of that NYX glitter glue, and I am going to go into the shade Illusion, which is a very beautiful multi-chrome. So very excited about that. And I am just going to do like another line of demarcation in between my mattes and my shimmers with this Illusion shade. Okay, so that's that. Then what I'm going to do is just try and wipe that off just a little bit. And we are going to go into the actual lid shade, which is Adriatic. I'm going to go with Adriatic. So we're going to take that And oh, the flat brush that I'm currently using is a Refer P21. I don't think that's the real name. I think this is like one of the tester models. So sorry if that's not the real name. So that's pretty much the look. The only thing that I like to do now is just kind of go back and forth just to make sure that the mattes and the shimmers aren't so stagnant. I don't like a stagnant blending there. And then I'm gonna add my liner and my mascaras. Then I will come in to show you guys the finished look. Alrighty guys, so this is the finished look. Alrighty, so this is look number one. I'm really enjoying what is come of look number one. Honestly, I just sat down, opened up this palette, and this was literally the look that just spoke to me. It just spoke to me, and it's crazy because I really didn't think that this palette was going to speak to me to any degree. I definitely have some other color schemes that I really want to play with and have some fun with, but this was something that I thought would be really cool, and I feel like I look like cotton candy in a way. Anyways, this is look number one. Pretty much everything on my base is Project Pan except for my lip products. My lip product, lip liner, and liquid lipstick are both Project Pan. Then on top I put my Tower 28 clear gloss. I will have everything listed down below as I typically do with these 3 looks 1 palette. And anyways, let's get into look number 2. Alrighty guys, so I'm here to bring you guys look number 2 in this 3 looks 1 palette, and I've already, as you can see, done one eye, and I've already prepped my second eye. So let's just get to it. I'm gonna use this busted Morphe M514. Honestly, I need to throw this away, but it works for right now. And we're going to go into the shade Bellini, which is this really pretty peachy pink shade. Now I'm going to throw this in my crease. You'll see that this really, it's truly a pastel. I feel like some of the other pastels I used yesterday, you could actually see it on my complexion, on my primer, all of that. It's set, and it also stayed put throughout all of the blending and everything throughout the look. This really did blow away in the grand scheme of things. So this is, I guess, a really true pastel when it comes to somebody of my complexion and how they typically actually do apply and last longevity wise, like I said, for somebody of my complexion. But I made it work. I think even though it doesn't show up in the final look, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. So that's it blown out. I don't even think it's picking up on camera, so that's telling. But regardless, then what I ended up doing, I ended up playing with a couple of shades in that outer V, but the shade that I kind of liked the most, and ultimately is what you guys see in that outer V, is actually a shimmer. So I used a brush I'm trying to clean off real quick. I used another Sephora brush, and this is their 18, and I picked up product from this shade, which is Starlit. So it's a really pretty, like, coppery purple type situation. No, I'm sorry, I said purple, coppery pink situation, and you will see it really pulls that like base pink a lot. What I did is I would pick up the product on my brush and spray it, and then I would apply the product in the spot that I wanted to. So now I'm gonna go back and forth and do this so that this is pretty apparent in this outer V area. And then what I'm gonna do is actually just use this same brush and pretty much just blend her out. I don't want this to be like, you know, blended to the gods. I really don't care that much, to be quite honest, but I also just don't want it to be stark. And although this is clearly not a matte, this is clearly a shimmer, I found that I still got the effect that I wanted. I wanted a little bit more depth in that outer V, and I got it with this look. So this is like a kind of trick that I've seen a couple people do with shades that they like but are not actual mattes, and this is a trick that I'm finally trying for myself. Beware though, if you take that same shade on the lower lash line, it could potentially get into your eye, so if you were smart and not stupid like me, I would suggest what's it called, spraying that lower brush to make sure that it stays where you apply it. I also did just take my blending brush just to blend out that outer edge a little bit, and it kind of helps it to blend in a little bit more seamlessly. Now on this eye, like I said, it does look, I think, a tad bit darker, and that's because I was messing with quite a few different shades in that outer V to try and get something. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mess with them, or mess with this shade just to get a similar effect that I had on the other eye. I should have just done that from the get-go, but I don't know, I guess I could get that effect without doing all of these steps. So just give me 1 second. If you really are curious, I took the shade Tule and Bora, and I was playing with those being my outer V originally, and then that's when I went ahead and just took Starlit and put that right on top. So okay, so that is all done. Now what I'm gonna do is clean off this brush just a little bit. So now that the brush is cleaned off, I'm gonna use what extra product came out and maybe a little bit more of my NYX glitter glue, if I can get any more. So we're gonna apply this on my lid, and I'm gonna cut my crease. Now, as always, I am just going to blur in the outer V shade on that outer edge, just to ensure that there are similarities between, and it blends better. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is take my lid shade, and my lid shade for today is actually the shade Duet. Really pretty, I would say duochrome shade. Pretty duochrome. It has like a purple, a very light like lavender purple, to I would say like a teal blue. And this is going to take a little while, so let's just skip to when this is complete. Okay, and then like I said, I just take this brush, the same lid brush, and just slightly blur the edges. If you want, you can also just add a little bit of product of that same shade just to make sure it's blending the way you want. Okay, so my camera shut off because of the battery, but what I did very quickly, and I'm just going to show you guys again, is after I was blending the two shimmer shades together and also in my crease with my flat little brush, I find that with this particular formulation of Natasha Denona shimmers, I prefer to actually then go over it with my finger, which Natasha Denona does tend to use her fingers in her shimmer application. So I'm just going to take my finger into those two shimmers that I used, and if you just go over it, you get like a more subtle sheen situation. And I actually would just go back and forth just to make sure that that blend is truly what I wanted. Yeah, just truly what I wanted. So that is the whole lid, and I did do my lower lash line really quickly. I am going to actually show you guys what I did for my inner corner today instead of forgetting to show you like I did yesterday. So then what I did is I took a small brush. This is the short shader from Sigma, the E20, and I went into the shade Dainty, which is up here, a really pretty metallic shade in this actual formulation, or in this palette, and I took that into my inner corner. Now I can definitely see this having its own main character moment, but today I just kind of wanted to highlight the other shade instead. So that is the look. That's pretty much the look. All I need to do is add on liner and mascara, and then I'll also do some lip products because I have nothing on my lips right now, and then I'll pop back so you guys can see the finished look. Alrighty guys, so this is the finished look. And like I said, this is the finished look for look number 2. No, it was not what I necessarily was aiming for when I picked this palette up today, but nonetheless, I was able to get use out of even more shadows in this palette. I think there are only 3 shades now that I have not at least put on my eyes within these last two looks, which is really, really nice. I do just want to highlight yesterday, like I said, I forgot to show you guys what I put in my inner corner, and I actually put in limoncello. So that's what you see on this eye yesterday. Really, really pretty color. I will try and incorporate that color tomorrow in my look to kind of round out the three looks. If you're wondering, everything is literally the same base wise and lip combination wise. I'm going to try and finesse doing that again tomorrow so that it's easier for you guys and me. But that said, let's get into look number 3. Alrighty, so I'm here to bring you guys look number 3 for this 3 looks 1 palette, and I am going to go ahead and start off with a fluffy blending brush from Rougher Brushes. This is the P07D. I think this is a prototype, and I am going to go into the shade Feather, which is this light lavender shade. I'm going to pick up a decent amount of product, and I'm going to fluff this in the inner transition and the inner crease. Now this shade is definitely buildable. You can see that it's definitely getting more apparent on my skin tone, and that's what I enjoy about this shade. I enjoy pastels, even if they may not appear as pigmented right off the bat that I want. At least if they build up, that's okay in my book. So this one definitely builds up, and you can definitely see that it is a pastel kind of lavender-ish shade. There is quite a bit of pink in that shade too, but I'm okay with it. Then what I did is just honestly wiped the same brush off on my pants, which I'm doing right now. And then I went into the shade Airy, which is this light baby blue. What I found about this shade, as you can see, is that it actually appears and applies deeper than it does in pan on my eyes. So that's intriguing and good to know for future looks that I will be doing with this palette. As you know, I had envisioned it being on the same depth as that lavender shade, but it's definitely deeper, and that's okay. I work around it. I just did that. Of course, I brought it down below because I am preparing to do my lower lash line. To, of course, transition those two shades, I do go back and forth between the two shades in my palette just to get the type of blend that I want in between. You guys know I do like a decent blend. I'm not that person who's going to sit here and blend for an hour, but I do like a decent blend. Then what I did is went into a more compact blending brush. This is the ColourPop E9, and I went into the last kind of satin matte shade that I had not tried yet on camera with you all, which is Bubble right here. Now this is an intriguing shade. This once again is that like weird satin kind of formula. It's not quite a matte, but it's definitely not a shimmer, and it's not even like a satin. I don't really know. I would say, oh, maybe this is like a cream to powder. Maybe that's what it is, but it's a different form of cream to powder because it doesn't remind me of her previous ones. But regardless, it pulls a lot lighter on my complexion. So I was a bit deterred at one point because of that, but you know me, I'm gonna find a way to work around it, and I did. So I applied a good layer of that all in the outer V area, really focusing on the part that I wanted to kind of deepen up in the look. And then I reached in for my kind of go-to black. Reach for any go-to black that you have. I'm just gonna dab a little of that on this outer part, and the way that I applied it, I intended it to look just more like a deeper blue. I did not want this to look like a black, and I think I was able to achieve it. This is quite a pigmented black though, so I do end up kind of cleaning my brush off and then reapplying it slowly but surely, just because I don't want this to take over the look. I did just want this to be just a darker version of a blue in that outer V area, just to add some depth. You guys know I love depth. I've shown the depth in this palette, and that's cool and all, but I also love to see how pastels work with blacks, because I do tend to reach for a black when I am doing a pastel look off camera and just like in everyday normal life. So That's why I decided to reach in for this shade. And as you can see, it definitely added that depth and that exactly what I wanted. I am just going to slightly go back into Airy just to reinforce that shade up top. Okay, and then I'm just going to finalize my lower lash line. Okay, and so with keeping with the fact that I forgot to show you guys the limoncello in my first look, I did just go ahead and apply this, and I wanted to try a new technique when applying the actual shimmer shade. So I actually just went in with my finger, full blown with my finger. I do have a little bit of oil on my finger, but that's because I did my hair before I sat down. I have been trying to wipe it off, but you know how oil works. It stays behind until it's ready to leave your life. So yeah, anyways, I am just dabbing that onto my lid and then slightly into my crease to blend in with that beautiful, beautiful lavender-ish shade. And yeah, just going to keep applying until I am happy. And then I'm going to take a smudger one brush from Sonia G, and I am going to go into the shade Dainty. And this is going to go into my inner corner. All right, so this is the finished look. All I need to do, as always, is put on my liner and my mascaras. I also am going to finish up my lip product. I know it looks finished, but it's not. There's a couple things that I like to add with this lip combination. And then, yeah, I'll come back to show you guys the finished look. Alrighty, guys, so this is the finished look. Alrighty guys, so like I said, this is the finished and final third look. I really had fun with this look, not only of course with the eye tutorial, but also with the lip combination. It has been some time since I have done this combination. If you're wondering, I put the NYX Jet Set lip liner on, then I apply my Nabla Narcotic liquid lipstick, and then on top of that, which is a slightly deeper blue, I put on the Makeup Forever Artist Rouge Cream in C603. So this is one of my favorite blue lip combinations. Absolutely love this combination. So now what I want to do is just get into the review of this palette with you all. I want to talk about the people who I would recommend this to. I would talk about the people who I don't recommend this to, if I've enjoyed it so far, if I haven't, etc., etc. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so like I said, it is time to get into the nitty gritty, all the information. So I don't remember if I've talked about it before, so I do just want to emphasize that the packaging and the actual palette are both a matte finish. So you are going to get your grubby hands all over this, fingerprints, all of that. I already have makeup prints all over the front half of this palette. It also is a beautiful, beautiful ombre color from this light purple pinky down to this more tealy shade, which is really, really pretty. And if you care, the back is more of a straight up teal shade, very reminiscent to the teal down here in the bottom. Okay, then you get all of the eyeshadows inside. You get a combination of formulations, which you won't know the formulations unless you keep the actual packaging. And there are some different, like I said, formulations. They have plain matte shadows, the metallics, duochromes, and then also chroma crystal eyeshadows. So I'm trying to figure out, what is the CP stand for? Because the CP is this weird like satin-ish formula that is leaving a little bit to be desired. I don't really know what that stands for, but if I find out what it stands for before I get back or edit this video, I will have it flashing around across the screen. Otherwise, you get quite a few mattes. You get 1, 2, 3, 4 straight up mattes. You get 1, 2, 3, 4 of that like CP crystal formula. I don't even know what it's called. Then you get 1, 2, 3, I would say, that are actual like multi-chrome, or not multi-chromes, but nice foiled metallic shades. You get 1, 2, 3 multi-chrome or duochrome shades, and then this one, which I would consider just a normal satin. I wouldn't say that it's like this CP shade, but I wouldn't say, in my opinion, that it's as foiled as some of these more metallic shimmers that you see in the palette. Overall, for me, when I picked up this palette, I expected it to provide more colorful shades in this size pan for my Natasha Denona collection. I like to look at my Natasha Denona collection as single shadows that can be housed in these really pretty compacts. I like to look at it as particular shadows. I don't necessarily have to enjoy the full color scheme to pick it up. I really enjoy her formulations 9 times out of 10. And I've also found that even with some of these palettes where I looked at it and I was like, that looks stupid, I'm not gonna like it, I pick it up and I create really beautiful eye looks, and I'm like, this actually works out. This actually shows up on my skin tone. I'm actually truly enjoying this palette. So that's why I picked this palette up. I did not pick it up thinking it was going to be the be all end all when it comes to pastel palettes. I have pastel palettes in my collection, so I wouldn't have picked it up on that kind of mentality. I literally picked it up to be an addition to my Natasha Denona palettes and for the joy of just really enjoying her palettes in the past. That's why I picked it up. So if you're picking this up thinking this is going to be the be all end all, it's going to be the most pigmented, most blendable, have the most metallic foils, you're playing yourself. You really are playing yourself. I would recommend probably some of the shadows that you saw me comparing earlier in the video. So definitely go back to that in case you forgot some of those brands and stuff. And I will try my best to link the brands that I display in this video down below. I won't say that her metallics aren't pretty, but they're not indie shadows. So if you are somebody who's willing to pay indie prices to get those indie foiled shadows and those indies really nice, highly pigmented, rich mattes, this is not going to be in that same vein. But for such a luxury brand and for the fact that this is Natasha Denona, this is quite beautiful, and I don't find that any of these shades have really been replicated other than the 2 that we already know are literally stolen from the Tropics palette. There are no shades that are really, in my opinion, you can find in her collection, specifically in this size pan. So for me, it works out. Would I recommend this for a beginner? I actually would recommend this palette for a beginner. I would recommend getting it on sale though, especially like if you don't know that you love color, because a lot of these shades, specifically those mattes and even like these like weird CP shades, which I truly do think now that I'm looking at them, they're cream to powder. Oh yeah, CP. Cream to powder. I really do think that they are buildable, but they are not overly pigmented. So for some of those indier brands where you're going to get straight up pigment as soon as you apply them on your eyes, getting a pastel palette for a beginner with that type of formulation may not be the best. Whereas this type of formulation where it's slowly going to build, it's slowly going to get deeper, you can really play around. And the one thing that Natasha Denona does really well is you can look in the columns and in the like squares of each like palette, and you could 9 times out of 10 create a really pretty color eye tutorial just with what she provides. So for me, yes, this is expensive. Like I said, get it on sale. The VIB sale is coming up very soon. And then also Natasha Denona does a bomb sale at the end of every year, so I could also wait for that. I don't believe that anybody has actually said that this is specifically limited edition, so you may be able to just sit back and wait for it to go in like one of her bundles at the end of the year, especially if you don't have a lot in Natasha Denona. I would definitely recommend it that way, but I would recommend this palette. But you have to know how it can be useful for you and if it's going to actually make sense. If you're not going to use a product and you find that $65 is a lot of money for you, you really cannot afford $65, or even like $65 is your makeup budget for the month, Is this worth it? Maybe not. Maybe go with like a BH Cosmetics pastel palette or something that's cheaper so that you can get maybe more bang for your buck for your budget for the month. So I'm not going to necessarily push this down your throat. That's just not my personality. I don't have time for that, honestly. But I did want to bring you some representation of this palette on a darker complexion, and also give you guys my 2 thoughts when it comes to who would actually benefit from having this palette in their collection. That's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was really informative. Like I said, I will have had my intro. I would have had my 3 looks. I would have had full on like let's look at each palette and compare it and all of that. And I will also have had my swatches show up. So if you're looking for anything, definitely check out down below. I will do my best to get those timestamps published before the video goes live so that you guys can just shop around throughout this video, because I know it's going to be a long one. Alrighty guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one, which I believe is going to be another fragrance video. So I am excited. Alrighty guys, bye.